Every professional has a unique magic waiting to be discovered. At Finding the Unicorn in You helps you unlock your hidden potential. Thank you for tuning in. Now switching it over to our host.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Finding the Unicorn in You. Today, I have a special guest who is known as the Yielding Warrior. He teaches the five basic regulations fundamental to any meditative practice. He guides individuals on how to use ritual, active, and philosophical methods to build a personalized, evolving meditation program that fits their lifestyle. His expertise is further reflected in his 3 published books, including his latest, The Yielding Warrior, and hundreds of instructional videos. Having worked with thousands of students globally through the Yielding Warrior online program, he has a wealth of knowledge and insight to share. I'm excited to have him on here and to learn more about him. So without further ado, welcome Jeff Patterson. Hello, Jeff.
Hey, thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what led you to this path and what inspired you to do this?
Yeah, so I got led to the meditative arts in a bit of a roundabout way in that as a young guy, I was very into Western boxing. I love the thrill, the sport, the challenge, the strategy behind it. And I used to go to a boxing gym that was just a few blocks down the street here from my academy. And for those of you that have never been to one before, a boxing gym is run a lot different than your traditional fitness style classes, in that it's not one teacher up front leading a group of students. It's usually 4 or 5 coaches rolling around the gym, and each one of those coaches might have a handful of fighters that they're working with. At this one particular gym that I was at, one of the coaches was a very well-known coach. He had created champions in both the amateur and the professional arena, and I really wanted to get to spend some time with him. However, his card was full. He wasn't looking for any new fighters to train, and so I would always show up at the gym when I knew he was going to be there. I'd work really hard and try to get him to notice me, and I followed him around for about 3 or 4 months, and finally he started giving me some tips and showing me a few things. And it was only maybe, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks from getting to meet him and get to start training with him when he said something to me that changed my life forever. In that he said, if you really want to be a good boxer, you should start doing meditation and Tai Chi. Now, at the time, I'm this 19-year-old kid thinking, isn't Tai Chi for like old people in the park? How's that going to help me be a better fighter? And it totally transformed my life in many ways. And through the years, I've had over 26,000 students just come through my academy here in Portland, not counting my online members. And I've heard hundreds of stories through the years on how the meditative arts has positively influenced people's lives. And that's what's made me so passionate about trying to get the message out there and really trying to do some good with this practice.
That's amazing. So not only are you working on your mental health and grounding yourself, but also your physical health.
Yes.
That's awesome. So what is the reasoning behind adding meditation and all of that into the boxing that your instructor was suggesting? Like, why is it so important?
So within any meditation journey, there's basically 5 different paths that you can follow. There's what I call the athletic path, which teaches you how to be more in tune with the body, understand concepts such as yielding, be more present, be more active. It improves your timing and improves your response rate. It improves your ability to be present and not get caught off in distractions. Then there's the therapeutic side of the practice, which is great for longevity and dealing with injuries. There's the medical side of the practice, which goes into herbs and breath work and energy work, in the kind of more of the energy side of healing through acupuncture and Tui and different Qigong practices that you could do. Then there's the philosophical side of the practice, which has always been something I've been very passionate about. And I like it because it really opens up your peripheral vision and you start to see things from multiple angles and start understanding the strategies behind different things and how to be just a little bit more in tune and present. And then there's the spiritual side of the practice, which I think is what most people associate with meditation. And so when you see that there's so many different paths you can follow, the athletic path, while there are many benefits in that one path alone, there's lots of different ways that you can take the practice.
I love that. And is there just one type of meditation or is there different branches of it?
Oh, so many. In our program, we don't teach any one method. We teach the science behind meditation. Why are you doing these practices? How are they going to help you change your physiology, your mental state, your emotional state, and integrate these things into your life? So we build an evolving life practice with the meditative arts that fits the goals that you're trying to accomplish. And not everybody should be doing the same thing. There's practices that bring that energy inward that are good for kind of more stress reduction practices. And then there's practices that bring the energy outward that are good for, yeah, had to pick up something heavy or you're getting ready for a competition or something where you want to bring more of that yang aggression out. And there's ways that we can learn how to balance our physiology, our mental well-being, and then our emotional energetic states as well by using these practices. And as we integrate ritual practices, active practices, and philosophical practices, we can incorporate different things that will help us find that balance and get the outcomes that we're looking to do.
I love that. And like a lot of my listeners are either entrepreneurs, leaders, CEOs, or they have some sort of responsibility over others. And that a lot of that can accumulate a lot of stress. What are some things you recommend either through meditation or other techniques that they can do to manage that?
A lot of people come to the meditative arts to help with stress side of things, whether they're just have a high pressure career or even athletics or dealing with the public. A lot of professional athletes out there, it's stressful when you go out and everybody recognizes you. How do you deal with that? How do you keep your center and keep your focus? There's so many different ways that this can help you stay balanced. And within any meditation practice, we have what we call the five regulations. And these are five underlying principles that help us build a foundation for our meditation journey. And it doesn't matter if we're doing sitting meditation, Tai Chi, Qigong, yoga, whatever practice it is that we're doing, these five underlying principles are the foundation of that. And they are regulating the body, regulating the breath, regulating the mind, regulating the energy, and regulating the spirit. And briefly, I'll touch on what I mean by when I say those things. Regulating the body is the easiest one to understand, and it's the idea that you're paying attention to your skeletal alignment, your muscular tension in the body. An example would be think about a time maybe when you're sitting down at your computer for 3 or 4 hours and your shoulders are rounded forward, you're feeling lethargic, maybe your neck's getting sore. And then another time when the most important person in your world walks in the room and your body perks up and you feel like you're on top of the world. These two different energetic states we're in 100% control of all day, every day. And so as we learn to recognize these imbalances and maintain that alignment and that structure and that balance in our muscular tension in the body, we can regulate this. And then on a little bit of a deeper level with body regulation would be maintaining some kind of muscular structure in the body, some kind of flexibility, eating a healthy diet to keep the energy level good, and getting some kind of regulated sleep pattern going. All of this would be like in that body regulation. Then we have regulating the breath. And this is an extremely deep topic and something that you'll study for the rest of your life if you follow a meditation path. And because there's so many different breathing strategies, we broadly categorize them into yin methods and yang methods. And often they refer to qigong as the science of the breath because there's literally hundreds of these different breathing strategies. An example of a yin breath would be if you ever listen to somebody sleep, their natural breathing pattern is a longer inhale and a shorter exhale. And this is the body's natural way of bringing your conscious mind into your subconscious mind, which is where we are when we're sleeping and dreaming. And so, if you want to emulate that inward style of energetic expression in your meditation practice, we can do longer inhales, soft retentions at the end of the inhale, This helps bring that energy inward, which is great for stress reduction, dealing with anxiety, with panic attacks. It helps boost our creativity. There's many reasons why we would do this yin side of the breath. Then we have the yang side of the breath, which is more aggressive. It's if you ever had to pick up your car, you push something heavy, your natural instinct is to exhale, put tension in the breath, maybe make it audible, and this helps generate power. And so when we can start understanding how to use the breath to maintain balance in our physiology, our mental well-being, and our emotional well-being, this is a very important part of the practice. Then we have regulating the mind. This is the third pillar. And oftentimes I'll hear people say, I've tried meditation, but it just didn't work for me. I couldn't quiet the mind. And somewhere along the way, people got this misguided idea that in order to be successful with meditation, that you have to be in this state of nirvana where nothing bothers you, and
Mhm.
couldn't be further from the truth. I've been fortunate enough in the last 36 years to travel around the world and train with some amazing meditation practitioners. And I have never once met anybody who doesn't get distracted. Everybody does. It's just the way of the practice. But the idea is through meditation, we're able to recognize these imbalances and bring ourselves back to center without being out of balance for an extended period of time. So if you're doing a Tai Chi form or a sitting practice and you're sitting there for 20 minutes and you get distracted 50 times, you just got 50 repetitions on how to recognize that imbalance and bring yourself back to focus. And if you do that every day, every month, every year, you start to develop this power and this ability to pull yourself out of any distraction. There's this story that I really enjoy about these two old monks, and they're walking down this dirt road after a huge rainstorm, and they come up to this big mud puddle. And on the other side of the puddle is this beautiful little girl, and she's standing there in a white dress and she's crying. And the older monk, he yells across the puddle and says, "Is everything okay? Can we help you?" And she said, "I need to be somewhere, but if I walk across this puddle, I'm going to get my dress all dirty." So the older monk, he rolls up his pant legs and he walks across the puddle and picks her up, puts her on his back, takes her to the other side and sets her down, and she's off on her way. Him and the younger monk are walking a couple miles down the road. And finally, the younger monk is just furious and he says, "You know, we're not supposed to touch girls, but you did back there at the puddle." And the older monk looks down and says, "You're still thinking about that girl? I left her back there at the puddle." And how many times in life do we got to get 2 miles down the muddy road before we realize we got to let that thing go? And
Mhm.
that happens all the time. And the thing with meditation is it helps us recognize these imbalances before we get too far down that muddy road and lets us have the tools to make those adjustments. And so the mental regulation is a very important part of the meditation journey. And then we have regulating the energy. And regulating the energy is an extremely deep topic and something that we could talk about for hours. But briefly, it's the idea that once you've reached a competent level in regulating the body, the breath, and the mind, we now have the tools to regulate the energy and circulate it in the body, lead it inward, extend it outward to help control our energetic states. And then lastly, the fifth regulation is regulating the spirit, and many meditation practitioners will spend their entire life's journey working towards that ultimate stage of enlightenment. But you can see as you start to cultivate these five underlying principles of any meditation practice, excuse me, it can affect anything we do in life and help us in so many different areas.
Wow, that's very interesting. And I really like the story about the monk. With that, sometimes we obsess over a thought or a feeling, and we let that ruminate in our heads and dictate how we behave for the next unforeseen time. It's just like I'm just going to say a specific example of someone that I know at an old job. There was a person that was very upset with a colleague, and it was like a one time occurrence that just rubbed her the wrong way. And ever since then, every single time we talked about something, that incident would be brought up. And it's just like over and over again. It was just like we couldn't get through anything because it would go back to that incident. And it was like there was a lot of barriers that were put because of the incident, and then certain extra precautions we had to do, and certain things that we had to overcome just because that person wouldn't let go of that incident. They weren't able to talk about it with the person that it happened with. And that ended up causing all this strife. But like you said, if we just let it go, we process what happened. Okay, it happened. Either deal with it at that moment or just let it go, continue with your life and be able to focus on the here and the now. We can live such a happier, more fruitful life. But sometimes it's like we get fixated on those little moments in time.
For sure. Yeah. We're all guilty of traveling down that muddy road, but sometimes we just can't get off of it. And that's one of the things that is so valuable about this meditation practice is that it's a lot easier to make these adjustments before they gain too much negative momentum. If you've been stewing on something for 6 months, it's a lot harder to let go than if you just learn to look at it with a different frame of mind from the first minute that it happens. And that's why so many times in life, you'll see two people go through the same situation, and one person will move on and get stronger, and the other person will dwell on it for the next 20 years. And it's the exact same thing, but how do we choose to energetically deal with that imbalance? And so having that power and that awareness and that mindset is very important in anything we do.
Yeah. And I think one of the misconceptions is that when people hear the word let it go, they feel that we just need to avoid the issue and continue our lives. But that's not necessarily what you're doing. A lot of the times is processing the emotion, processing everything and seeing what other things can you do other than just fixate. Is this fixation benefiting your life or is it holding you back? Is it taking away or is it providing some type of meaning? And a lot of the times it's a lot more productive for us to let go or readjust our behaviors, our thought patterns, and try to do something better in the future that will make a more lasting impact to avoid the issue from happening again than just sitting where we are in the past and not doing anything about it and just obsessing over the problem.
For sure.
With all of this meditation that we've been talking about, how often should one do it?
I always recommend to my students to try to do at least a 20-minute ritual every day. And a ritual practice is when you are turning your focus inward. You're not listening to audios, you're not watching videos, you're spending that time listening to your own mind and your heartbeat and your breath and all of those things. So we build up that higher level of awareness and sensitivity within the body. And that's what gets you to a deeper level of practice. Then we also integrate some active practices throughout the day. And these are great because they help us stay in tune all day. It's silly to think that you can meditate every day and be in a peaceful place for 20 minutes or an hour or however long you meditate. And then the whole rest of the day, you're stressed out and distracted. So using these active practices through the day, which can be done in 60 seconds or 2 minutes, and they help keep that awareness and that focus and that presence. They could be as simple as counting out 10 breaths or doing some spinal rotations or a simple movement practice, something to bring that awareness back into center. And then the third pillar is the philosophical side of the practice, where we can integrate these strategies both in our active practices as well as our ritual based practice. And as you integrate those three kind of main pillars of the practice, you start to incorporate different things that help us down whatever path we're choosing to follow.
Okay. Seems pretty easy. And I think like in theory, it's all good and dandy, but it's like planning to do those 20 minutes a day, getting into the habit of doing it. And I think one of the common things that as human beings is that we'll try it for a couple days and then we forget one day and then we feel bad about ourselves and then we give up. So it's just so persistence and consistency is like what's going to help us through that.
As a teacher for over 30 years, one of the hardest things that I deal with is getting people to see the value of making this a life practice so they can really reap all the benefits from it. And I've come up with three things through the years that if people spend a little bit of time considering these and some heartfelt energy, that I find that they're a lot more they have a lot better chance of really being successful with the practice. And the first one is thinking about why are they being drawn to the practice? What is it they're trying to accomplish by integrating a meditation practice into their life? And then if they accomplish that goal, think about maybe 10 or 20 things that will be positively affected once you accomplish that goal. How's it going to change your own interpersonal dialogue? How's it going to change your relationships, your business, your sleep, your stress levels, whatever that is for you? And then also flip the coin and think, if I don't accomplish that, what are 10 or 20 negative things that are going to happen if I don't do that? And if they have this, they'll have some kind of fuel to help get them through those times that we all
Mm,
face where the alarm goes off in the morning and it's time to get up and practice. And you're like, yeah, I'll hit the snooze button. I'll do it tomorrow, and that always comes up. But if you have that mindset shift of thinking, this is something I get to do. I'm so lucky. It's helping me with all of these benefits. I can't wait to do it rather than this is a chore I got to do every day. I said I was going to meditate for 20 minutes a day. I better go do it. That whole shift in how you think about it will lead to more success. The second thing is consistency. And here I've got another ancient story for you that I enjoy that kind of relays this idea. And it's about this old stonecutter who was very well known. And he created these beautiful sculptures of animal sculptures and scenery, and so detailed that his work was known all over China. And because of this, he'd have people travel from all over the country to come live with him for a few years at a time to learn the trade and apprentice with him. Every morning, the stonecutter, he used to go down to the river to meditate. And one morning after his meditation session, he was walking along the river and he had this very profound vision of this 6 foot tall, beautiful, mystical Chinese dragon. And he was so taken by this dragon that he decided this was going to be his next project. So he decided that the dragon was going to be carved out of jade. And if you can imagine, finding a big piece of jade like this was no easy feat. So he spent the next few months traveling all around looking for the perfect stone to have this dragon come to life. Finally, when he found the stone, he brought it back to his place, and for a few days, he just studied the stone and looked at it and tried to feel its energy and see how this dragon was soon to appear out of the stone. When he decided to start working on the dragon, he carefully placed his chisel on one specific place on the backside of the stone and started tapping away with his hammer. Hundreds, if not thousands of times a day. Every day, a few days went by and nothing seemed to change. A few more days went by and his apprentices started second guessing him and thinking, man, should he try something different? Is this going to work? And a few more days went by. Finally, he tapped the stone and this big section came off of the back and created this nice, smooth, curved line. And one of his apprentices asked, excuse me, how did you know that tap was going to break the stone? And the stonecutter said, it wasn't that tap that broke the stone. It was the thousands of taps before it that broke the stone. And with a bit of a discouraged look on his face, the apprentice said, but I've been watching you, and there wasn't even a crack or a mark on the rock. How did you know to keep tapping that? How did you know? Why didn't you want to try something else? And the stonecutter got down on his knee and he felt the smooth crack that or the few smooth line that he just created that was soon to be part of the dragon's back. And he said, every strike was not wasted. The stone was changing beneath the surface. And even though we could not see it with the naked eye, these changes were affecting how this was going to come out. And not only was it changing underneath the stone, but it was also changing the one who wields the hammer. And I love this story because it's so closely related to the meditative arts, and that we're practicing this breath work and doing these meditations and these movement practices and studying these philosophical concepts, that often we don't see the change happening day to day. And we've got to have this consistency and this discipline. So we develop this integrity and perseverance within our practice that bleeds over into everything we do in life, and where we can really start reaping the fruits of the practice.
Hmm.
And so consistency is the second thing. And then the third and final thing is having them understand that you have to find a guide to guide you through and show you how to really excel in the meditative arts, because there are so many videos out there on YouTube and this app and another app or whatever that you follow and listen to. And if you think that you're going to be self-taught in a practice like this and get to any kind of depth, you're very much mistaken. I've seen people come into the academy who have been self-taught and they've been studying for 15, even 20 years sometimes. And they'll get a little frustrated when they see somebody who's been studying under a guide for 12 months, who's deeper into the practice. When our lives are short, your time is valuable. Having somebody that can help point you in the right direction and save you a lot of time is priceless. And if you think about your why and you understand consistency and you have somebody in your corner pointing you down the right direction, that's going to make you more successful in this practice than anything else.
I love that. And those are very, really big points. And there's a lot that I want to dive in there, but we are running out of time. I want to go into our last question, which is the unicorn question. So, out of all the lessons you've learned in your life that made you the person that you are today, what is the one unicorn lesson that impacted you the most that led you on your journey?
No, I was the first kid in my whole extended family to go through college, and everybody thought I was going to go get some big important job and do something in the finance world or do something that was very respectable and in the business sense. And when I met that boxing coach who I mentioned earlier, he used to tell me that you want to create a life and not make a living. And even though I graduated and got great grades, I got 2 degrees in less than 4 years. I had opportunities to go get jobs in the financial markets and do something in that direction that would have way surpassed what I was making teaching the meditative and the martial arts, especially at the time. I would have never been as happy and fulfilled if I didn't follow my passion and create the life I wanted and not just be behind a desk making it work to make a living. And so I think, following what your heart is telling you to do is probably the most important lesson that I've learned in my life.
I love that. And there's a lot of social pressures out there that tell us you should do this, you shouldn't do that. Or sometimes we get in our own way because we're like, are the people around me going to be proud for following my dreams? But at the end of the day, like you said, follow your heart. And the only person that really matters in what you're doing, and like the happiness and the approval, is yourself. You have to be happy and content in what you're doing. Because in your deathbed, you're not going to be asking who was like what did everybody else think of me? It's just, did I live a fruitful life that I was happy with? But amazing, amazing conversation, Jeff. I really appreciate your time here. This has been a really interesting conversation. So if somebody wants to get in touch with you, visit your location to learn more about meditation, how can they do so?
So they could go to my website, theyieldingwarrior.com. Also, I'm giving away a free copy of my most recent book at theyieldingwarrior.com/book. You just pay for shipping and handling. And at the website, you can see our online program that teaches you how to build an evolving life practice with the meditative arts. And also, we have a teacher training program up there. So if you're somebody who is a martial arts studio owner, a yoga studio owner, a life coach, and you want to learn how to integrate meditative practice into your business as an individual pillar that can help support your business, this is a great avenue for you. And the cool thing is that with most martial arts and yoga studios, 90% of their clients are under 50 for sure. But with a meditative program, you get a lot of 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and even some 80s in the program. And so you can target a whole different demographic that really adds a substantial support to your overall revenue at your business. Here at our academy, our internal art program is our biggest program. And so while we have 4 different adult programs, we have our striking program, which is boxing and Muay Thai, our Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu program, and our kids program. And then our meditation program is very solid. And without it, the business wouldn't be even close to what it is. And so it's very helpful.
Thank you for sharing that. And for the listeners, everything that he mentioned will be in the show notes. And also, if you go to my website at Raygoza at rainbowcareercoaching.com, go to the Unicorn Wall of Fame, you'll see Jeff on there and a summary of the episode along with all the links in there as well. Thank you so much, Jeff, for everything. One last reminder for everybody, episodes do come out every Friday at 7 a.m. Don't forget to share and leave us a review so that this content keeps getting shared around so other people can benefit from the unicorn lessons that are shared here today. And any last words before we close up?
No, sir. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you, everyone. And until next time.